All right, time now to talk a little New York State politics as we run through some stories that New Yorkers need to know about here. First up, more drama in the state Senate. You ask, how's that possible? Well, reports out of Albany say that the Senate's top two Democrats were planning to meet and perhaps, I stress the word perhaps, bury the political hatchet between the two. Jeff Klein, whose breakaway group formed a coalition with Senate Republicans, he was slated to meet with top Democrat Mike Gianaris, perhaps in an effort to try to reconcile. That meeting canceled after the word got out. But Klein reportedly had problems with the GOP during the budget process, and the coalition may be hurting Klein at home. He's facing a potential primary challenge from former state attorney general and Bronx City Councilman Oliver Capel. Dominic, here, it's always been, and I think the governor's enjoyed it here in terms of like this trifecta, the Republicans, the Democrats, and the kind of Democrats they've needed to broker a deal. But what's Klein doing? Is this all about self-preservation?
It's all about self-preservation. It's all about power, trying to gain power. Senator Klein is no novice to this political politics. He's very good at reading the tea leaves, and he's trying to survive. The game in Albany, particularly in the state Senate, these folks are constantly maneuvering to move up.
But progressives have gotten more and more ticked off, the Democrats in the state Senate, right? Because they've said, all right, we'll go along to get along. But this governor on social policy is fine, but on economic policies, like we've talked many times here, if you close your eyes, you could be Governor Pataki. To that end, Andrew, they may not be so willing here to just say, tell us what you want, Klein, because they need what Klein wants, right? I mean, they've got more. They don't have the majority here, but Klein may not have as much. He's got to play a dangerous game.
Well, there's a lot of pressure that seems to be growing on Klein, and the sense that I'm getting is that it was some social issues that would come up during the budget process that Klein couldn't get out of his partnership with the Republicans in the state Senate. So that may be leading to some of this pressure here. But I think you also hit on something that's critical, Rich, which is Andrew Cuomo, I don't think wants the Democrats in control of the state Senate. He can get a lot more mileage out of playing against a somewhat unfriendly Senate, or at least having a small group that he needs to sway, being the one that tilts the scales one way or
Fiscally
another.
conservative, socially progressive.
Absolutely.
It's worked for him for 4 years. The polls seem to think he'll get another 4 years here, but an interesting thing to follow. Now, a couple of book deals making news today here. The first is from former Lieutenant Governor Richard Ravitch, who, by the way, will be interviewing tomorrow. He was appointed to the #2 job by David Patterson here when he was thrust into office right after the Spitzer affair. Well, his new book coming out, So Much to Do. In it, Ravitch says he and Patterson got political interference from, get this, then Attorney General Andrew Cuomo. Cuomo, Ravitch says, essentially usurped power from Patterson through Patterson's own chief of staff, Larry Schwartz, and those in Westchester may remember the name. Ravitch says Schwartz was clearly taking his directions from Cuomo, not from Patterson, and to help elevate Cuomo and make sure that Patterson didn't in fact run for a second term. Schwartz now the top aide to, you guessed it, Governor Cuomo. Did you hear some of the same rumors at the time?
There were rumors quite a bit, Richard, from day one, frankly, and I hate to say this, that Governor Patterson was never in full control, ever. That there were maneuvers going on behind his back where he was the front person, but not really the person in power.
And we know some of the principles, Andrew, from over the years. Larry Schwartz used to be with the Westchester County Executive, then Andy Spano went up there. But the idea that you would have the Attorney General undermining the governor, I just want you to think about how the role reverses. Now, Governor Cuomo, it's like, you know, Schneiderman, the Attorney General, now almost has to get permission to have a press conference from this governor. Look at how much the roles reversed if you believe the allegations in the book.
Well, first of all, who better knows the power of the Attorney General's position to influence the governor and to take headlines away than Andrew Cuomo.
Yep.
So, of course, he's watching his flank in this process as well. But I think it also speaks to Andrew Cuomo's political skills that he would be able to undermine Patterson in that way, especially with one of his top guys, Larry Schwartz. It also makes you wonder what the relationship would have been like if Eliot Spitzer had stayed in the governor's mansion, if Cuomo would have been able to sort of undermine him in the same way. You know he would have tried.
No.
You know he would have
Different
tried.
animals, though. Yeah.
No.
But perfect segue in terms of the political skills and influence of one governor, now Governor Cuomo. Other book here that made news today, And it also made news about when it's actually coming out. It's about the governor himself. Unauthorized biography that's been scheduled for November release, now being pushed back till next year after the governor's re-election campaign. The publisher insists timing had nothing to do with the governor's campaign, but the governor's own autobiography still on track to be released this August. In fact, the title of it, instead of The Sun Also Rises, it's got a more innocuous name title here. Respected journalist and everything else. I'll give the benefit of the doubt that this thing was always going to be pushed back.
I don't.
Yeah.
The Cuomo team plays for keeps. Every journalist that's ever covered this governor knows that that's his MO. If you
Have you ever gotten the late night phone call off the record from the governor himself?
I haven't received the late night phone call, but I have received some things that I cannot repeat on television from the governor himself. Let's just leave it at that.
Fair
and
enough.
so but his other people, they go much further. And so Patterson, you can do whatever you want. He wasn't going to strike back. Cuomo, you take a shot at him, he's taking 8 at you. All with a smile for the cameras.
I just wonder, and I'm curious, Dominic, if Cuomo decides that he can't play in 2016, let's say Hillary runs.
He's not going to. What do you mean? It's done.
Okay.
It's over.
But so
Hillary Clinton's the next president in all likelihood of the United States. Andrew Cuomo.
But I'm sure deep in his heart of hearts, Andrew Cuomo hasn't given up
If
that
she
ghost.
doesn't run,
So,
he
but,
wants to be
but
ready.
so I'm wondering,
with you.
I'm wondering
Okay.
if Cuomo comes to that realization, if that changes Cuomo as governor, or if it changes his approach in any way, when he doesn't have to posture himself for 2016 or 2020 or something like that.
Great question. I don't think he's going to change who he is. Andrew Cuomo is what he is. You know, he plays rough ball politics, sort of like somebody we know in New Jersey, but he doesn't go as far, it appears, as the governor in New Jersey.
And I'm not saying this is fact here, but to get a publisher and a journalist to push back the launch date of a book, which would help sales. You're going to launch it right before an election, right? You got to figure something's going to happen between now and November, even if it's not seismic, something to help spike the book sales of it.
It's suspicious.
It's interesting. It's also, hey, if you have the juice to pull that off, God bless you. All right. Now, an issue we've talked about in New York forever is obviously MMA has become very popular nationally here, but it's not in New York. One state here, is there more than one? I think it's the only state now left, right? Or maybe there's one other one where you can't actually have sanctioned MMA fights here in the state. Well, could Albany finally be changing its tune? New reports out from the Ultimate Fighting Championship League, UFC, that says MMA fighting could bring about $67 million a year in revenue to New York based on the 70 events the group would actually hold in the state of New York. Governor Cuomo has said that he's attracted to the economic potential of MMA fighting in the state, and bills legalizing the sport have passed both houses in Albany in the past several times. But Assembly Speaker Shelley Silver has so far refused to even bring the bill to the Assembly floor. And Andrew, this is a little different than the past. There was a state senator who personally would block this because his committee had to basically push it up. He said, I don't agree with it, and it didn't matter if every other lawmaker in the state Senate felt otherwise, he wouldn't let it move forward. He's gone now. Right. You think this happens?
I think there are clearly some members in the Assembly who have reservations about it. I don't think it's Sheldon Silver who's saying, I don't want this in New York, but I think he may be providing cover for some of his members. I get the feeling that this will happen only because the money is too great and the tax revenue and the other financial benefits that come to the state are too great to ignore. And you've got a guy in the governor's mansion who is all about the bottom line and boosting the bottom line for New York. So why not let it happen? Though we could have this debate all day long. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with it, but I think it's more likely than not to happen, though maybe not before November.
And also it doesn't seem that this is a governor who doesn't mind a fight. Ha. Okay. Coming up next here. Thanks for picking me up, guys. Yeah. We're going to take a look back at some of the heartfelt tributes and strong statements that came out of ceremonies honoring victims of the Boston Marathon bombings.